Okay, I have kind of a legal question.
Yeah.
I used to be involved in SI, and I got some recovery from that. But I found Tuloha on Facebook about a year ago, and I've been networking with the people on it. And I just kind of need to know where's the legal line of when you need to report things. I've had 3 people this past weekend who've tried to commit suicide by overdose.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
like,
kind of where's the legal limit of
yeah.
support people who have to report it?
I think, honestly, I wish I had a better answer, and I think, and I think there's even different philosophies within that. Like we work really closely with 1-800-Suicide, and their response is not always to call the police, and yet there's other schools of thought that say if that happens, then you just call the police instantly. You know what I mean? And so we feel like Reese was the guy in the video, the bald guy with the suit on, and he's the guy who runs the National Hopeline Network. You know, they responded to 3 million crisis calls in the last 10 years. You know, and he's of the opinion that you don't just send the cops. You know what I mean? So I think it's one that, like we were sitting with people who do similar things in Omaha yesterday and just talking about it. You know what I mean? And I think. It's one where I think I wish I had a better answer for you, but I think it's one that even within the mental health community, people are still trying to figure out, you know. And I think it's one where I think it's worth fighting for those answers, like from other people. You know what I mean?
Is there a point where you're held liable if you know someone's suicide note, and then kind of legally liable if that person is committed suicide?
Yeah, you know what? I lean on our team, like, and I'm totally gonna plead ignorant right now. Like I work with a bunch of folks, and so there's people who have figured out the policy and the way that works. And I do know when there's a suicide note that we do call the authorities, like that we do have to, like when it's on that level. But I also know there's things that feel like gray area, a fine line, you know. But I think for us, when it's happening online, a lot of times we're obviously removed from. We don't actually know the person, we don't live where they live. So we have to just to literally try to keep that person alive, you know, or trying to fight for their life. So I think it's one I'd be down to put you in touch with our team, you know, to find out like the homework that they've done and some of the policy stuff that they've figured out. Because I end up kind of doing the more general stuff. But I think it's a great answer, and a great question. I wish I had a better answer.
I really like what you said about not being afraid of people's pain. In my experiences, sometimes people don't always respond because they are afraid of other people's pain. And I think that's like a huge thing, that if you're struggling with SI or something similar, that when you reach out to someone, it's a huge deal and you expect people to respond. So in that sense, what would you tell family and friends? Like, I know there's no script, but what would you tell them?
Yeah, like the family and friends that are being asked to respond, that are finding out about it. Yeah, I think it is that idea. Like I think you meant what I said when I said people need to hear that, you know, because I think obviously I think a lot of times people respond, they are afraid and they are concerned because they love the person, and out of that just the fear kind of takes over, and I think it plays out in different ways. Like some people kind of ignore it. Like my friend who I was talking about, my Australian friend. He said that his response was one that was really compassionate, and he went and really wanted to be with his dad and talk with his dad. And he felt like his mom couldn't really get her head around it. She didn't really understand, and so she kind of just got quiet and withdrew, you know. And so I think people, parents, whatever, that we respond in different ways. But I think a lot of times too, these things are so foreign to people that they're not responding from a place of wisdom. They're responding kind of out of fear and maybe even ignorance at times. Like just the idea that their son or daughter would be cutting themselves with a razor blade, that feels so shocking and horrifying, and they may know nothing about it. And so that they're just, oh my gosh, this is, you know, maybe they don't know how common it is, or they don't know why, you know. And I think another disservice that people do is with self-injury is people will say, hey, there's enough problems in the world, why are you hurting yourself? People don't know, they don't understand that there's a bigger story, that there's deeper things happening, you know, that it's a way of, it's using pain to deal with pain, that there's something going on inside, you know. And so I think our hope would be that that people would begin to do the homework, that people would really say, you're my son, you're my daughter, whoever, you're my friend, I love you, and in loving you, I'm not going to give up on you when you're finally being honest with me. Like, I'm going to meet you in that place, I'm going to meet you in your questions, and if you'll invite me in, then I'll walk with you. And it's probably not going to be the parent's role to fix the kid, you know what I mean, to counsel the kid, but what does it look like to walk alongside someone, you know, to walk with them to get the help that they need.
That's my simple answer, I'm not sure. But I live in a small town, and there have been people who have been dealing with depression, and they've been ridiculed, and they face so much pressure from the community, and not the community that you were talking about, but a different town. And I was just wondering, I love what you said about community and how you described it, and I was wondering, how do you engage that, and how do you start something and interact with people you wouldn't normally, to tell them someone's there and someone cares?
Yeah,
And I mean, like, how would you just start that?
that's a good question, man. Because I even think about what I say and how it sounds to people, and I think if I'm not careful, I'm assuming, I think our hope is that everyone has friends, you know? Our hope is that everyone has a best friend, everyone has 10 great friends, everyone has 50 friends, like, but the reality is that there's people who feel very much alone, you know? And I was in Omaha 2 nights ago, and there was a mom who pulled me aside at the end and just said, I want community, I want what you're talking about, and I don't know how to find it. And I'm 37 years old, you know, that's what she said. And there's not this formula, you know, because I think, and that's heartbreaking, you know, that people live alone, and I don't know how it happens, you know, but I think what does it look like to begin to live in a way that seeks those people out? Sometimes if it's a setting where there's a lot of young people, it's like, okay, we all, whether you grew up in school or you're still in school, there's someone that sits alone at lunch every day. And what does it look like to care enough to go sit by that person and just say, hey, how's your day going? You probably don't get to show up and say, hey, I'm here to fix you. Like, that's probably not going to go well, you know? But what does it look like to build relationships? And what does it look like to be sensitive to the needs of the people that we're around, you know? Or what does it look like to be part of a community that's not a clique? Like, what does it look like to be part of a community that's actually inviting, and part of a community that actually looks outward and cares about other people more than it does just itself? You know, and I don't know how that works, but I think maybe it's a lifestyle choice when we begin to live a life that isn't just super self-absorbed and super selfish. Like, what does it look like for me as an individual to live a life that looks out? And what does it look like if I have 10 good friends, for us as 10 good friends to try to live that way and do life that way? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know.
Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, it did.